Welcome back to the I Am More Than podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Wessel. I'm a former Miss Arizona USA professional model and founder of More Than Inc. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We know that it's an anxious time, and we hope that our podcast can inspire and uplift you. If you take a second to rate and review, we would be so appreciative. This week's guest is a singer-songwriter, former Miss Arizona, and mental health advocate. In this episode, we dove into her journey of overcoming Tourette syndrome, OCD, and social anxiety. She spoke in front of millions at Miss America and is now a successful artist in Nashville. She is so much more than a country singer, and I was so inspired by our conversation. I hope you will be too. Please welcome my friend, Jennifer Smestad. But for those of you who don't know Jen, I want to give a quick little intro about who you are, how we know each other, and then we'll dive into the convo.
Well, my name is Jennifer Smestad. As she said, I was a former Miss Arizona in 2013 in the Miss America organization, which is how Jordan and I know each other. She was Miss Arizona USA at the same time I was Miss Arizona, and we trained together with our personal trainer, Scott Keppel, and seriously clicked and became best friends within seconds. And here we are 7 years later, still best friends. She's living in New York, of course. I'm living in Nashville, and we still keep in contact all the time. And I am out there doing the whole country singer and songwriter career. So pursuing the country music career.
Which is perfect for you because you have the most amazing voice I've ever heard.
Well, thank you.
You're amazing. So
I try.
After this, all of you need to go check out Jen because she's out of this world. But like you said, we clicked instantly. I think the first day we ever trained, like within 5 minutes,
Yes.
Scott couldn't get us to stop talking.
Yeah, pretty sure he had to separate us.
All the time. But you were the best part about working out. So I was like, yeah, if I have to be here every day, like, at least I get to hang out with my bestie. That's amazing. And for people that don't know the difference between the America organization and the Miss USA organization, can you touch on that?
Yes. So the Miss America organization is specifically scholarship and service-based. So I actually got my college paid for through winning Miss Arizona and competing at Miss America. Went to, Grand Canyon University and got that completely covered, which was awesome. And we do a lot of community service, which I know you did that as well throughout your year. You kind of can choose to or not to. And obviously Jordan chose to. She's an incredible human, as you guys know, because you're listening to this.
I love you.
Yes. And then Miss America also has a talent portion. So since I'm a singer, I sang for my talent. So it's just, they're both the greatest organizations. And obviously we met each other through it and just supported each other, which I love that because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, do you guys hate each other because you're in different organizations? We're like, no, we support each other.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny because I know my experience, it was my first ever pageant, and I know you kind of had a similar experience to that. So I would love to hear what made you want to get into pageantry.
Yeah, so it was completely random for me as well. One of my best friends, Jennifer Sedler, was Miss Arizona 2011, and we had been friends since high school. So I went to Miss America to watch her compete, and it was just to support her and just to go watch her. And then literally on the way back, I was like, I think I want to do this. Completely random. I had never done a pageant before, never even thought about doing a pageant before. And I was just like, okay, how do I do this? Can you help me get involved? So I competed in the Miss America organization. You have to compete for local titles before you can compete in the state. So I competed for my very first local pageant, got first runner-up, which I was pleased with because I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And then competed again and also got first runner-up. And that was the last pageant of we call it pageant season. So I wasn't able to compete for Miss Arizona that year. And then the next year I competed for the first local, won that, and then went on to Miss Arizona and won Miss Arizona.
What a comeback.
Yes, I finally gave myself, after winning my first title, like 9 months to prepare, and I worked my booty off. It was not easy, but it was definitely worth it.
I think a lot of people have this preconceived notion about what a pageant girl is actually like, and that we just go on stage and smile and wear a bathing suit and a gown, and that's it.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't know that it takes months worth of preparation, and you really have to not only get physically ready, but mentally ready more than anything.
Oh,
What was
yeah.
that like for you?
Well, going from having no idea what I'm doing to kind of getting an idea of it, I actually think that was probably a good thing because if I knew too much, I probably would have compared myself more. I probably would have, just gotten in my mind a lot. So I was a little blinded by that, and also was really focusing on my faith and my relationship with God at that time, and specifically working on not comparing myself to other people, especially when it came to talent, because I really got in my mindset that I cannot control anyone's talent. I can't make anyone do any worse so I sound any better. So I was like, all right, they've got their talents, I've got mine. I'm just going to work on mine and focus on mine. And somehow I think I told myself that enough every day and was just praying into it. And I really believed that. So I went on stage in every portion, but talent specifically, just thinking, okay, these are my talents that God blessed me with. And I prepared 9 months for this. And it's kind of, you're performing a 90-second talent, and I have 9 months to prepare for it. So I made sure I was prepared. I didn't just go wing it. So you usually have at least a little bit of time to prepare mentally for this kind of stuff. And but there's also stuff that you never know how to prepare mentally because this is your first time jumping into it and you don't really know what to expect. So there was some of that as well, but I was
Yeah.
for the most part as prepared as I could be.
Which, I mean, that's really wise of you. Did you have direction from past title holders that were kind of giving you that knowledge that you can't compare yourself? Because
Yes.
that's easier said than done.
For sure. So I actually worked with, for interview coaching and kind of all of that stuff, I worked with a former Miss Arizona, Nicole Flesner, and she helped me a lot with the interview portion, with every aspect, but the interview specifically, because I had no idea what to do there. I didn't know we had to stay current on all the hot topics and current events and all that kind of stuff. So she helped me do mock interviews and develop my opinions on the important current events going on. So yeah, she did help me with that. And she was also like, hey, there's going to be people who are baton twirlers. There's going to be people who are other singers, piano players, dancers. And you can't really compare yourself to a dancer because you're like, well,
Totally.
I'm not dancing, I'm singing. And then even to another singer, you're like, well, I guess you could compare yourself, but what is that going to do? How is that going to help you? So yeah, I mean, I really did get that in my mind and got that wise advice from other people. And that would be my biggest advice for anybody, is to truly just focus on everything that you're doing because you can't change what other people are doing.
No, you really can't. And I feel like I had the same approach going into Miss Arizona USA. And I feel like my approach changed a lot preparing for Miss USA just because I was much more in my own head. I wasn't taking my own advice. And it was hard for me not to compare myself to other people when I got to Miss USA. Did you have a similar experience when you got to Miss America, or were you still in that positive mindset that you were just staying in your own lane?
I had an interesting experience at Miss America. So I was completely prepared and confident and ready for Miss Arizona. And I only had about a month and a half, 2 months to prepare for Miss America.
Oh,
And
wow.
I didn't feel as prepared. I didn't do many mock interviews. So I wanted to work with Nicole again, and I wasn't able to for other reasons. But it was just like I wasn't as prepared. I was like, I really need Nicole to interview me and help me. She's incredible.
Yeah.
So, but you have new directors and stuff like that. So I wasn't able to. So just I think I lost a lot of confidence because there were 52 other women who had been doing this for years and years and years. And they were, of course, other gorgeous women, and it's a national level. And I'm like, okay, I'm this girl who really has never done pageants before, and I'm going to Miss America. And I made a lot of friends, and that was the most incredible part because they have lasted to this day. And the experience was incredible. But I do remember almost backing down from where I could have been. I didn't compete as well as I know I could have because I was lost a little bit of confidence, and also I was afraid to win. I I don't know. I guess I wasn't ready to be Miss America, so I was like, I'm kind of afraid to win, so I'm not going to do the best I can, which is I look back and I'm like, why did you do that? But it's a learning experience, and I did learn from it to always give it your all. But I kind of was just afraid of success, I guess.
I think I was the exact same way, and I think that's why you and I bonded even more
Yes.
after we competed nationally because it's like, what were we doing?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm like,
I
why?
even look back at Miss USA and see myself, and I'm like, what?
Me too.
Like,
Yep.
you had so much more to give.
Yes.
And like you said, I think it just comes back to just being scared of success. And I don't know if it was just being naive. I don't know if it was we didn't feel deserving at the time. But I think that the wiser we get and the more we can look back and be like, snap out of it.
Right.
Like, what?
Yep.
So I definitely want to be able to share that wisdom with other people. But I also feel like you kind of have to go through the experience and the journey for yourself because you never know how you're going to handle a
Yeah.
situation
I
like
mean,
that.
it's so true. You can give all the advice you can give and take some and leave some. But at the end of the day, you have to go through it yourself, and you're going to learn your own lessons, and you're going to teach people your own lessons someday too. So yeah, everyone has a different experience.
Yep, you're so right. And the rest of your year, once you get back from Miss America, what was that like for you?
I was so excited to represent Arizona. I just love my state, and I still claim that it's my state. I'm in Tennessee now, but Arizona is still my state.
Arizona forever.
Yes, forever. Um, but I was able to just serve the whole year, which was incredible because your only obligation is kind of to be Miss Arizona and to serve. So I got involved. I was the state leader for Children's Miracle Network Hospital, so Phoenix Children's Hospitals. And I got to go visit kids a lot, and they love seeing, they call them princesses in crowns. So it's just amazing to be able to see their smiley faces when they see someone come visit them with a pretty crown on. And, we just smile and tell them we're princesses because that's what they love. And then I got involved with an organization called Hope Kids, which is for children and families with life threatening illnesses. So it provides extracurricular fun things for them to do where they don't have to worry about the cost. So when they're in the hospital all the time or they're worried about medical bills and they kind of just are in and out of doctors' offices, it's an opportunity for people to be able to go to the bowling alley and bowl with other friends, or to go to movies or Diamondbacks games or whatever it may be. It's just to get their mind off of their illness and
So
off
they can
of.
be a kid.
Exactly. Yes. So I worked a lot with them, and of course I did a lot of community events. My singing thing for the whole year was, I was like the national anthem girl. I sang it everywhere.
Get it, girl.
Yes.
Get
So
it.
I don't even know how many times I sang it that year. It felt like 100, which is probably actually real. Who knows?
Probably.
I don't know. A lot. I'm very familiar with the national anthem.
Well, and once you were getting ready to pass along your crown, did you have plans for what you were going to do after the fact?
Not entirely. So this is actually something that we have talked about before, and that I would
Yeah.
like to share with this podcast and the people listening as well. So no, actually, I feel like your only obligation for one entire year is to be Miss Arizona. And however months or however many years you're preparing to win that, that's also your only obligation. So for really a year and 9 months from getting prepared for Miss Arizona and then winning, that's my only obligation. I'm not really thinking about anything else. I'm not really thinking about what am I going to do right when I give up the crown. I knew I was going to go finish college. I had a couple years under my belt already, so I knew I was going to go finish. I knew I wanted to do music, but there were no set plans. So when I gave up my title, that was kind of it. You give it up, and the moment you crown another girl, whether it's true or not, you feel like you're completely forgotten about. You feel like you have nothing to do. For lack of better words, you kind of feel worthless. And
Yeah.
it's so hard. No one really mentally prepared me for that. So my biggest advice for people after the crown is to kind of have some sort of plan and preparation emotionally and mentally to know, like, hey, this is only going to last a year, and I'm going to treat this year the best I can because I'll never get this back. And not many people get this opportunity. and really take it for what it is and appreciate it and know that it's not going to last forever. The legacy will. You will always be a former Miss Arizona. You will always be in that family. But for being a current title holder, that's only going to last a year for everybody, not just me, not just
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
somehow, and I don't have it figured out, but I think like somehow accepting that beforehand and knowing that it's going to end and kind of having a plan for afterwards would be my biggest advice, because I remember just sitting there for a couple of days, having nothing to do. No emails were coming in. No one was asking me to come to events. And I was like, oh my gosh, everyone forgot who I am. And it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard emotionally. It might sound weird to people who haven't done pageants, but it takes a toll on you for sure.
It really does. And I think, at least with my experience, beforehand, you know what life is like. You know who you are. You know where you fit. You know your influence.
Yes,
Then suddenly you get this crown and you are a hero to people suddenly. You walk in a room and you demand attention regardless of what comes out of your mouth, solely because you have a crown and sash on.
oh my gosh, it's so
And
powerful. It's so true.
it's so powerful. And I don't think I even understood the weight of that until after a couple events, being like, okay, like this is something people truly care about. And after, when you take that off, you're still the same person with the exact same passions, with the same strong voice, yet without that shiny crown, people don't listen.
Exactly.
It was shocking
Unfortunately,
to me.
yeah, yeah,
It was really shocking. And I know we both, again, we bonded over that as well, just
yes,
because it's like, it's a whole identity crisis that both of our identities got wrapped up in this label of being a title holder. And when that's
yes.
stripped, what else are we?
Exactly. I mean, it's something that you really can't prepare for. So if you can somehow, I don't know, and that's the thing that I don't have figured out. It's like, how do you prepare for this? I think accepting it and knowing that that's going to happen is the first step. Like that right there is just knowledge is power. And that right there is like accepting it is always the first step, right?
Right? It really is. And we were having this conversation with our trainer, Scott Keppel, shout out to STS, and he compared it to when a woman is pregnant, that there's 9 months, 9 years, oh my God,
Oh my
nine
gosh.
months of of buildup, and everybody's always asking, like, how are you? What can we do? How's the baby? All of this. And then you have the baby, and all of a sudden, all attention is completely shifted off of you.
Yep.
And it's an identity crisis that you still play a very crucial role. You still are the exact same person, but that's not where people's attention lies anymore.
Yes.
And I don't think I had anybody ever explain that or compare that to me. And I know you and I both felt very isolated in this time because
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
I don't feel like I can relate to my peers anymore.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, exactly. And a lot of insecurities take place because of that, and whatever it may be, body image issues, some people may turn to things that are more dangerous, and I know I turned to food and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, and of course I gained a few pounds after whatever, however many how many pounds it was, and then insecurities come up on top of that too. So it's pretty crazy. It's
Totally.
something I wasn't prepared for.
And I really do want to dive into that too, because when you're training for something, you at least know like there's an end date coming.
Yeah.
So whether that's a non-sustainable diet you're on or more exercise than you would normally do or whatever it may be, most people don't have that drive to just do that just to do it. And I think that shift for me was kind of shocking because it's like, okay, if I'm not training for something in particular, why am I on a strict diet?
Yep.
Why am I working out for 2 hours? Like, it's not necessary. But then all of a sudden, it was like a flood of these body image issues because I will never look the way that I look during my pageant days because I'm not willing to do what I did at that
Yes.
time.
Me too.
But it still plays tricks on your mind because you see what you can look like.
Yes, and that's the hardest part, is not even comparing myself to other women. It's comparing myself to myself 7 years ago. And that's definitely the hardest part. And I've gone through so many ups and downs since then. Emotionally, physically, I've been in even better shape after Miss America, and then even worse shape. So it's like, it's gone up and down. So I have a couple times in my life that I constantly compare myself to, but you're so right. It's not realistic. Yes, I can be that weight again. Yes, I can look that weight again, but is it worth it to get there? Not really. For me, it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love
Exactly. I feel the exact same way.
yeah, I love to go out and socially eat with my friends and not be like, sorry, I can't have a chip. I,
Right?
I want the chips.
It's a transition. And I also think that like there's a time and place in our lives to be that structured, to be that
Yes.
strict. But
Uh-huh.
there's also like we're never going to be in our mid 20s again having these social times, having these awesome opportunities that like although sometimes we might want to hold ourselves back from doing that in fear of like overeating or whatever it may be, I've really had to come to terms with myself that like I'm not going to punish myself during this time
Yes.
because I have some unrealistic standard of beauty,
Hmm. Oh,
you
yeah,
know? And
totally.
I think that applies to women whether you've done pageants or not, you know? Like we
Oh,
all
yeah.
struggle behind closed doors with our own body image issues to whatever extent, you know?
Right.
And I know that's something that both you and I have opened up with each other about, but I do want to talk about that a little bit because I think it's very easy for people to look at our social media or look at the experiences that
Yes.
we've had and compare their lives and their lifestyle to what ours can sometimes be.
Right.
And I want to break through that a little bit because they don't see that we struggle. And I want people to be able to see like we are all on the exact same playing field
Oh
here.
my gosh, we totally are. I have a lot of friends. It's part of society. It's social media. It's being a girl. And then if you have a pageant experience, if you've been made fun of, there's a bunch of different factors. And I feel like every girl, regardless of who they are or what they've done, have some type of body image issue or insecurity in this way. And it's so common. And if anyone has followed my story since Miss Arizona, you probably know this about me. But if not, I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, OCD, and anxiety when I was 10 years old. So that's been a huge struggle. And we can talk about this also later, but I always like to share what helped me. I did
Yeah,
natural,
absolutely.
yes, in case it'll help anyone else, I did natural Chinese acupuncture and took natural Chinese herbs from Dr. Jing Lu in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I'm not kidding you, it took away nearly everything. There's no cure to this kind of mental illness. There's not, but there's things that can help. And I just speak so highly of her and acupuncture, and it just did me wonders. It changed my life. So that helped me a lot. That's not to say I don't struggle with some things still, especially when it comes to the body image stuff. So if you're unfamiliar with OCD, it's obsessive compulsive disorder. So you obsess over certain things. There's a bunch of different factors. I'm not going to go into all of it. You can read up on it if you want to. But with that being said, if I have an obsession with measuring food, with writing down what I'm eating, with my weight, anything like that, where the average person can just be like, oh, this sucks. I really want to do this. I really want to do that. For someone with OCD, you obsess and you obsess and you obsess probably 10 to 100 times more than the average person. So, and I actually just recently found this out about myself. I was like, why am I so focused on this and I can't let it go like I feel like most of my friends can? And I was reading up on OCD that I've had for my whole life. And, I'm just 27 years old now, learning more about myself and learning more about that. And I'm like, wow, okay, Jen, give yourself a little bit of grace because this is something that you struggled with forever. And it kind of makes sense. So it's almost
Totally.
freeing to be like, all right, it's not cool to obsess over this, but it's okay. And you need to try to learn other ways to turn to, whatever that may be. But it's something I still struggle with. It's something that a lot of women struggle with whether it's depression, anxiety, anything like that. Like it adds on to just the normal thought that you have about yourself or food, your relationship with food, with anything. So I
Totally.
feel you, girls. It's not easy.
It's hard. And I think that one of the main reasons that I wanted to even start this podcast is because I think mental health is something that affects every single person, yet nobody talks about it. And it feels very isolating when you feel like you're the only one struggling. And I know you and I both have struggled with anxiety. I would like to dive a little bit more into OCD and Tourette's and how you have found a way to manage not only your symptoms, but also what is that like with you? What are your struggles? What advice can you give to women that have the exact same thing but have never sought out treatment? So I know that's a loaded question, but
Yeah, I'll do what I can.
right? It's very loaded.
It is honestly terrifying to be told, hey, you have Tourette syndrome, you have OCD, you have social anxiety, general anxiety. You're terrified, especially at 10 years old. And not only are you diagnosed with it, but your whole family has to go through it. And it's basically a whole family diagnosis. And it's hard to accept, first of all. And actually, that's the first problem that I had. I never accepted it. I always kind of lived in this fantasy world and pretended that it wasn't there, which maybe that actually like helped somewhat. But I also wasn't realistic with it. There's a point where you have to be realistic, and there's also a point where you have to think positively. I just wasn't realistic at all. So my whole life up until I competed for Miss Arizona, I was like, no, I don't have this, I don't have this, I don't have this, and just wasn't accepting of it. And when I decided to compete for Miss Arizona, that's when I first told people about it. I never told anyone about it beforehand. I tried to hide it as much as I could. Of course, people would make fun of the facial movements I make. Of course, people would notice, but I never told them what it was. I was just so embarrassed by the diagnosis. And I was like, no, this is not me, which is true. You're not defined by your mental illness. You're not.
Totally.
And I think it's important to acknowledge it and accept it, but to also think positive. I think that's huge, 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 huge is a positive mindset. I also had a prayer team with my family, with my family's friends, and all that. And that is huge. I believe in the power of prayer
I'm
and
with you.
thinking positively. And I mean, there were times where I was so mad at God, or I would pray and cry and scream and pray that He would take my life away at 10, 11 years old. And that's heavy for a 10-year-old. And I mean, obviously, He had other plans for me. My mom always told me I would inspire people one day. And at the time, I was like, no, but I believe her now.
Exactly.
um,
Now your story is power.
Yeah, yes. And I think always investing in your health is the most important thing, your mental health, your physical health, whether that's going to counseling, exercising is huge to release endorphins for any type of, even if you don't have a mental illness, it's just so good for your mind. So, any type of 30 minutes of exercise every day, even if it's just a walk, is so important. And I've known that since I was a kid. That's pretty much, I was always active in sports, and it helped tremendously. If I ever had a day off, it was not so good as days I would exercise. Feeding your body with proper nutrients, don't underestimate that. Don't underestimate eating healthy, because that's
Yeah.
so important. I really think taking care of your health in general, your spiritual health, your mental health, emotional health, physical health, that is what's going to tackle everything, and that's what's going to help you. Because,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, if you're living a miserable life, it's going to make everything worse.
Yeah. You're so right. And it's fascinating to me because you opened up to me about the fact that you had OCD and Tourette's after I had already known you for a year.
Yes.
And I never saw, and like, there's never one indication that I would have been like, oh, yeah, I see it and I'm here for you. I was shocked, as I'm sure you get that reaction a lot just because you don't show
Yes.
symptoms of what, and maybe that's a horrible preconceived notion of what society has of what those things look like. But I would love for you to dive into like once you get diagnosed, what does then high school look like for you to where you are now?
Yeah.
How did you manage your symptoms?
So, being diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, I'm not sure about the others, but for sure, Tourette syndrome, you have to be having symptoms for at least a year. So, being diagnosed at 10, I had it started at least when I was 9. And that it was so hard because what people don't know is it's severe. And what people think about Tourette's is they're like, oh, did you just shout profanity all the time. That's actually, I don't know if the statistics are still the same, but what I remember last is only 13% of people with Tourette syndrome actually shout profanity.
Oh,
So
wow.
no, that actually wasn't part one of my tics. And your tics change daily, weekly. If you see someone do another tic, like if you're with other kids with Tourette's, you pick up on their tics and they pick up on yours, and it just makes it everything worse, basically.
Really?
Yeah, it's
That's so
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, or even someone without Tourette's, they can do some type of hand movement or whatever that you just like your brain picks up, and that's one of your new tics. So this is how I like to explain it. It's kind of like an itch. Like when you have an itch, you technically don't have to itch it. You can just stand there and go crazy and hold it in for as long as you can. But when it keeps adding up, you're finally going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this. I have to itch it. And you're going to itch it like crazy. So that's kind of how you can't control Tourette's completely, but you can hold it in. So it was even worse for my family, which, oh my gosh, my poor family. When I would go to school, I would hold it in as much as I can. And then I would go to the bathroom and kind of explode in the bathroom. And there were tics here and there that I couldn't hold in that would just come out in class. And I was embarrassed. I was afraid people would make fun of me. It was constantly on guard thinking, oh my gosh, are people looking at me? So it was really,
Oh, you poor thing.
yeah, it was distracting my mind from
Yeah.
learning. And I loved school. So it was so hard to have to go to school and be like, oh my gosh, are people thinking about me? All this stuff. So really hard. And that went on for years. And then, when you hold it in all day at school, you come home, and honestly, the best way I can explain it is it seems like your body is going into like seizure mode for just hours.
Oh, you
And you
poor thing.
can't, at times I couldn't even walk up the stairs. I couldn't, I'd cry myself to sleep every night. My dad would have to carry me up the stairs because I'd constantly hit my elbow on stuff and trip over the stairs. And because of my OCD, have to run up and down it. It'd take me 30 minutes to walk up the stairs just because of a mental illness. It was very severe. So yeah, I mean, when you do get older, a lot of the times you grow out of a lot of the tics. So luckily, most adults with Tourette's are not as severe as children.
Okay.
And also the
Interesting.
acupuncture helped me. Keeping up with my health helps me always. If I don't get sleep and if I am super stressed out, some tics will still come up worse. So like still to this day, it's sleep is important, health is important. But then in high school, yeah, it's all very interesting. So high
It's a
school,
balance, it sounds like.
it
Like,
a
you really
hundred
have
percent,
to make sure everything is aligned in
yes,
order to be at your optimal state of health.
yep. And everyone's different, like so random. But I couldn't eat Doritos for some reason. Whatever's in
Hmm,
Doritos made my tics like really bad. Yeah. So everyone is
interesting.
different. It's so weird. I still don't eat Doritos to this day because of that.
Hey, I get it.
Yeah. So yeah. So high school though, same thing because of the social anxiety. I couldn't give speeches in front of my classes. I had to do it just in front of my teachers. And then I kind of, this is where the mindset jumps in. I never wanted to be treated differently. I never wanted to, oh yeah, she can turn in her homework a week late and have extra time to do it because of this. I'm like, no, I want to be treated like a normal student, and I want to do it on my own, so I kind of pushed myself to be normal student. And my senior year, I wanted to be in student council. So at the end of junior year, in order to be in student council, you have to speak in front of your entire class. So that was about 800 people for me. And I'm like, whoa, I can't even speak in front of 20 people. What do you mean 800?
Yeah,
But I
wow.
wanted student council, and I wanted to do that and achieve that so badly that I figured a way around it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make myself uncomfortable because it's going to grow me. And I decided, instead of speaking in front of my entire class, I changed lyrics to a popular song at the time and sang to them why I should be elected into student council.
That's
So
amazing.
that's kind of honestly the first time people found out I sang. That's the first time people knew I sang. And that was the start really of getting me out of my shell. So,
Wow. And it's so interesting to hear your story in depth because the Jen that I met when you were, what, 19 when we met?
yeah, yeah.
Like the most social butterfly I've ever seen, always talking in front of crowds of people.
Yeah, it's so
You
weird.
spoke in front of millions of people on national television.
Yes.
And now you're a country singer
Yes. It's yeah.
singing live shows all the time.
I would never
I think
yeah, it's weird.
that's such a testament, though,
Well,
to
thank you so
like the
much.
power of your mind. And there's a lot of things you can't control,
Yes.
but what you've been able to control is amazing because you pushing yourself at student council in high school has served you for the rest of your life,
It
you
really
know?
has. That's the one thing I'm like, that was the start of everything.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And now, when does acupuncture come into the mix?
I was around 13, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 12. Yeah, I was young. So, it really helped mainly with my or maybe I was 14. I don't know. It was somewhere around there.
But
But
still
yeah,
very young.
I just remember for sure going in 8th grade. And yeah, still very young, but right before high school. So it didn't, it helped me with my panic attacks. It helped me with my tics and with my OCD to where I was finally able to read a book on my own. I was finally able to write my own paper. Like my parents had to basically write for me and read out loud to me because it would just take me 20 times longer to do it. And I would constantly erase and rewrite and erase. So by the time high school came along, I was finally able to do all of that on my own.
Wow.
Luckily, going into high
Wow.
school, I don't want my parents to be reading for me, who does?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, my parents say they noticed after one treatment, I went to a volleyball practice, and my dad was like, whoa, she's not having as many ticks. And I didn't notice the first time. I went probably twice a week for a couple months and then maybe started to notice and then lowered it down to once a week, once every couple weeks. So really, I mean, the consistency is so important. And the herbs I was taking every day for months and for years, I call them tune-ups. Every time I'm in town, I'll still go do a couple acupuncture treatments. You never grow out of health. You never
No,
grow out of
never.
taking care of yourself. So, I mean, I was very consistent with it though. You can't just go once and be like, I'm healed. You've really got to be consistent with it.
How cool. And were you supplementing this treatments along with like medication, or was it 100% Chinese
It
medicine?
was 100% Chinese medicine. I did
That's a miracle.
it
Wow.
really is because I before I found the Chinese medicine, I did try prescription drugs, and they just made everything worse for me. It developed,
Wow.
developed other things, depression and other things that I didn't have before. So
Totally. The side
yeah,
effects are sometimes even worse than what the
yes,
actual condition was to begin with.
yes,
Wow. Well, that's really, really cool that your parents were so open to naturopathic alternatives at such a
yes.
young age because you were
Yeah.
before the trendy curve.
Well, I'm very
Now it's a
fortunate.
cool thing to do.
It is. I know. We were kind of, honestly, when we heard about acupuncture, we're like, I don't know. I don't really think it's going to help, but what do we have to lose? And at this
Oh,
point, we didn't know much about, obviously, knowing what we do now. I would never get brain surgery, but at the time, we were looking into that because we are like, is brain surgery going to help this? Which I don't think it would. I don't know, but we were to the point to where we were considering that. So for acupuncture to come
wow.
along, we're like, if this works, like we'll take it.
That's unbelievable. And now you're saying so when you're in town, you do tune-ups. Do you have a naturopathic doctor in Nashville as well? Or are you good the length that you go when you're in Nashville?
I am good. I do have a naturopathic doctor, not acupuncture, and it's not Chinese herbs. It's just for it's muscle testing and that kind of stuff. It's just for
Wow.
just vitamins, just to stay healthy for what my body specifically needs. So yeah, I do have that. I do, still do the whole nutrition, exercise thing, just to take care of myself as much as I can. And then I come back and
Absolutely.
and do acupuncture in Arizona.
That's really amazing. Well, I'm so glad that it's been able to work for you for this long.
Gosh, me too.
You're
It's a
what,
blessing.
27 now, right?
Yes. Yep.
That's amazing.
It is a
Wow.
blessing.
Well,
That's why I love to tell people this because a
you need
lot of
to.
other people with mental illness have gone to Dr. Jing Lu as well. And they have similar testimonies. So I just always tell people about it.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you do because I know for myself, I have bad anxiety and panic attacks. And I remember opening up to you about that, like feeling so ashamed. And suddenly knowing your story as well, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone.
Yes, and that's
It's
so freeing and refreshing because it's scary. You feel
totally.
like you feel like you're gonna die when you feel like you can't catch your breath. It's scary.
Hmm. It really is. It really is. Well, thank you for sharing your story. I
Yeah,
think that's really going to help a lot of
I
people.
hope so.
And I'm so glad that you've been able to kind of take control of your own mental health because I think a lot of the times people are controlled
Yes.
by their mental health, not thinking that they have any power.
Yep.
And I do think that although there's a lot out of our control, we do have control to an extent.
Yes, we do. Yep.
So I want to switch into a more exciting gear because you and I both, after giving up our titles and being like, well, so what do we do now with our lives? I moved to New York shortly after you moved to Nashville to
Yes.
pursue your music career. And it's now been, what, 3 years?
Yeah, three and a
You
half.
have, oh my gosh, 3.5. Time is
No.
flying. And you have multiple records out. You're coming out with a new record. I want to hear all about this journey you've been on because we really both had to step outside of our comfort zones when we decided to
Yes.
pick up from our families and leave. I know that was tough for you. Do you want to talk a little bit about like what made you want to try?
Yeah, I mean, I always knew I wanted to be a singer. Just always since I was a kid. I have videos when I was 3, 5, 6 years old singing, and then of course when I was going through the extreme social anxiety, I still knew I wanted to be a singer, but I was like, how? I can't even sing outside of the shower. Like, how? So, always knew I wanted to be that. Since high school, always knew I wanted to eventually move to Nashville, but there were no plans. It was always like, oh, just whenever that happens. So after Miss Arizona, I finished college. I have an acting and modeling agent out here and kind of was doing that for a while. And then honestly, it took a really bad breakup for me to finally just up and leave and go to Nashville. So,
Love that.
yes. So, thank God
That was
for,
a blessing. Thank God for that
yes,
loser.
exactly. I mean, huge blessing, but I finally just up and left and I was like, you know what? It's time to go. And man, I never look back. I love it there. I love the career. I mean, I say I love that. It's a love and hate relationship. It's hard. It's
Totally.
like modeling in New York is. It's hard. But I am recording and releasing. I'm writing like crazy. I just released a song in February. It's called Half the Man and it's a father-daughter dance
Love
song.
that song. I just got
Thank
chills even
you.
thinking about it. It's so
Thank you so
beautiful.
much. And I'm releasing another one. Actually, I don't know when this podcast is going to air. It's probably already released. So
Exactly.
it's called Up Until Now. So that one's also available on iTunes and Spotify. And then I'm releasing 4 more throughout 2020. So 6 songs total in
Wow.
2020.
And have you written all these songs yourself or do you have a
Yep.
team? What does that look like? All
So yeah,
yourself.
no, not all myself. Sorry. No, you should see, I don't enjoy writing by myself. I should. And I'll come up with like choruses or verses or ideas and I'll bring them into a write, but I love co-writing. It's just so much more fun to me and I actually think better when I'm with other people and I like write
Oh, I'm
better
sure.
off of their ideas and hopping off of each other's ideas. So I co-write. I have a bunch of co-writers in Nashville that I love to write with and you kind of find your writing circle is what they call it and I kind of finally found that after 3 years and I just write with the same few people over and over, and we get the best stuff that way.
I love that. That's
So
amazing.
it's fun.
And
It's weird. It's like I'm getting together with friends and like writing stuff for fun. And this is my job. It's pretty cool.
and that's your job. And it's so cool because you had this goal, you had enough bravery to execute the goal, and you went there by yourself. Like you didn't have connections, you didn't know
Yes.
people. You had to build this community that is now so strong and you're established now that I think a lot of people hold themselves back thinking that they're not going to be okay on their own. And now that you're 3.5 years in, can you look back and be like, thank God I had the guts to just do it?
Oh, 1,000,000%. Because
Right.
now networking is so important, and going out and supporting your fellow artists and fellow songwriters is so important. And I try to do that still as much as I can. I love staying home. So I'm a homebody. I'm like
Me too.
sweatpants, movies, like popcorn, let's just stay home. So if I get out of the house, it's kind of a big deal. So
I'm with you.
I try to do that a lot, but it's so important, and especially supporting your friends and all that kind of stuff, and finding new co-writers and all that. It's important. So looking back, I'm like, thank God I jumped into Nashville and did this, because honestly, I don't know if I would do it today. It's almost like I had the momentum at that time, and just going to events by myself and introducing myself to people and being like, "Hey, I just moved here last week. Do you want to write with me? I have no idea who I am as an artist." And it's like the most awkward thing, that I met, by the grace of God, the most incredible people who were so loving and accepting. Because I mean, to this day, I'll go up to people, and some people are just like, "Oh, yeah, let's be friends. Let's write, whatever." And then other people are like, "No." They tell you no. You get so many no's, and
You
it's
get a lot of those,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, you get so many no's. And so I'm just like, wow, I can't believe I came across such incredible people when I first moved here, because they could have told me no. So, I
Totally.
mean, just
But it
putting
also,
yourself out there.
exactly. And it comes down to perseverance too, that
Yes.
maybe it was a blessing that we had a pageant experience because there's a lot of no's,
Uh-huh.
or anything in the modeling career, there's a lot of no's.
Oh,
That
a
then when
million
you
percent.
find one yes, it
Yes.
gives you all the perseverance in the world to keep chasing
Exactly.
those yeses.
Yes, exactly. I mean, what auditions? It's like one in every 30 or something you actually end up getting. So
Right.
it's just, yeah, exactly.
And do you see yourself staying in Nashville for the time being?
I do. My dream would be to split time 50-50 Arizona and Nashville, just because it rains a lot there and I love the sun.
I get it.
So that would be like my dream and my goal. So I don't know how long that's going to take, maybe in a couple of years, who knows. But yes, for the time being, staying in Nashville, going to work my booty off there. And, until I feel like I can maybe split time, I'll just be there.
I hear ya. Well, I still have never been to Nashville, so I'm
Oh
gonna
my
make my way
gosh,
out there and
I
come see
know.
you.
Come visit me.
I know, I can't
We got
wait.
a place to stay.
Hey, girl, I will take you up on that. You know I will. Well, for everybody that wants to be able to come check you out and listen to all your music now, where can they find you? Social media, websites, all that.
Yes, pretty much anywhere you get your music, I'm there. YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Amazon Music, all of that under Jennifer Smested. I'll spell that for you real quick because it's kind of a difficult one. It's Smestad, and I'm sure Jordan will have it written somewhere.
Of course.
And then JenniferSmested.com has all the music, all the social media, all the info, and Instagram. I just got a TikTok. Instagram,
Get it, girl.
yeah, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter are Jennifer Smested. So all just my first and last name. Facebook, I think, is Jennifer Smested Official. So pretty much all the same
Amazing.
all around.
And I'll plug it all in the show notes so that
Yes.
everybody can come and check you out.
Well, thanks.
And I really appreciate you being here, Jen, and sharing your story. I think it's really going to impact a lot of people. You're amazing.
Thank you so much. I just love how far you and I both have come, and we're still here in this together. We're in this life together.
Girl, we're stuck together.
I know.
It's going to be us in 40 years doing the
Exactly.
same old thing.
We're going to be like, all right, do another podcast in 40 years.
Exactly. Remember that one time? All right. Things are getting weird. We're signing off.
Bye, guys. Sorry.
Bye. So there you have it. I hope you got just as much out of this episode as I did. If you guys haven't yet subscribed to our newsletter, make sure you go to the homepage of our website, scroll down just a little bit, enter all your information, and you'll be the first to know about exclusive content coming your way. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.